podcast number 691. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now!
AKA Negative Camber. And tonight, for your kind consideration, we are going to review the Hungarian Grand Prix review. You know how we do this.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
That's exactly what we do. But tonight, before doing that, I have to introduce my friend, my dear, dear friend, who allows me to call him Paul. Most people know him as the International. He's languishing in hot, tepid, humid Texas right now in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You happen to know him as...
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles, the International.
It's the International. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yes, as you said, it is searing hot here. And during these COVID shut-in times, I've learned many things about how to do things myself around the house. And another first was staining my fence that I put up a couple of months ago. That you have to kind of let it sit. Yeah,
Nice.
So my skin was burning as I was doing this.
What color? Did you go with like a burnt umber? What did you do?
No, that would be horrible. But
An ochre?
I don't know, it's like a medium brown. It's really not that exciting, but at least it's now all uniform, which is very important to my life balance.
So you're out doing the...
No, I have the sprayer.
Oh, see, you're high tech.
Yeah, so I can spray all the neighbors' houses at the same time. They can get
I
the
think-
overspray.
I think I am officially the last male in America to buy a power washer.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
The last one.
Yeah,
Because everyone else has one already.
Everyone has one.
Yeah. Right. I don't have one, but the neighbor has one, so.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm not the last.
Yeah. I don't like paying for things, so I tend to borrow them.
You're that neighbor that borrowed the power washer and never gave it back.
That's right. Right. Till it was broken.
Right.
Yeah. Then I give it back and go, I don't know what happened.
Right.
Oh, congratulations on your you and your lovely wife and your 21st wedding anniversary.
Yeah,
Very nice.
Yeah, 21.
Yeah.
I'm excited. She's put up with my crap
Right.
21 years.
You must have done something right in your life, my friend.
It's amazing that she's
It
put up
is.
with me this long.
It is. I wouldn't,
No.
I only have to do it for an hour or so a week. I mean, jeez.
Right. I mean, I haven't wanted to put up with me for this whole lifetime.
Right.
I'm stuck with myself. But,
I know.
she had a choice and she chose poorly.
Well, either way, 21's a nice one.
It's
a fun.
21.
Yeah.
Now, you and your wife have been married something similar, right? You guys are
Yeah. 22.
22. That's what I thought. Yeah, you and I were like paralleled. Same age, same married.
Well, I'm
same
younger
life,
than you.
barely. You can count the months on your hand.
Hey, younger's younger. Whatever.
Whatever. We both have 2 kids,
Yeah.
2 teenagers. Yeah.
Yes. Fun.
It's nuts. I know.
It is nuts.
Well, Kate made it on my most recent Skidmark episode.
Oh, I did not see that. Did she?
Yeah,
Oh, good.
She came walking into the room, didn't know I was recording, so.
Oh,
she
well
was on
done.
it. So yeah. Anyway, I packed up my wife and daughter, sent them off on vacation, and I stayed home because I have too much to do at the day job. So I threatened all of you last week that I was going to be recording this remotely and that it would be a crap product. But here I am. I'm home and at the
Still might be a crap product, but
well, I can never guarantee it.
we
won't
can
be a
never
crap.
guarantee that. Yeah.
Never guarantee that. But there was a Hungarian Grand Prix, 3 weeks on the trot. The teams, personnel, everybody's been in their little COVID bubble and working their tails off. And the narrative so far is that Mercedes is beating the paddock, like a rented mule.
Yeah.
And 3 races onward, this Hungarian Grand Prix exposed that. Let's review the race. Before I get into the race, Paul, I wanted to ask you.
This isn't in the notes. Is there something in the
No,
notes?
it's not
about-
in the notes.
God.
I'm going way off the notes.
I read
man.
these notes and I have all these pre-written answers because I study them so hard. I don't know.
I know. And for those of you that watch the podcast, so I do make race notes. See, I've got all these notes there.
Yep.
And I do make all these. But anyway, I was watching this weekend, and being that I happen to not be a professional race car driver,
Yeah.
and just my good fortune, you happen to be a professional race car driver.
Yep.
I thought that you might be the guy to ask this question. So before I
Okay.
get into asking you about what makes this track special, and I do like this track, I really do. Alex Albon, noticing him struggling in free practice, qualifying all weekend long, and I was very keen to ask you, Paul, and I'm sure we've talked about this in past podcasts, but it's been a while. So newer listeners may not have heard us talk about this, but how hard would it be to have to deal with what Alex was dealing with in free practice and quali, Paul, where the car quite literally is understeering on the entrance to the corners, and at the apex and the exit of the corners, it's horribly oversteering, snap oversteering. It's not consistent.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that as a driver? Because they tried so many setup changes, and he was saying it's basically it's loose on the entry and tight on the loose on the exit, tight on the entry, and how do you deal with that, Paul?
Yeah. Well, you bitch a lot on the radio first.
You did do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, the toughest thing was the other thing you said about inconsistency. That's the toughest thing to deal with. You can deal with certain attributes of a car, and certain attributes have different feelings on the entry, the corner, the middle, and the exit. And if you get to know that car well enough, you can dial in some adjustments as a driver to reduce some of the nuances there that are kind of catching you out. But when you don't know what's going to happen at any moment in time, then you always have to work underneath the bar of the limit of the car by quite a margin, in racing terms, right? Like 3% or something, so that if something like that does happen, it isn't automatically a crash. So you got to, and it's unnerving for you to really push, obviously. Now, those attributes are kind of reverse of what you really want, right? You kind of, depending on the circuit like Hungary, where it's pretty tight turns, having the car rotate a little bit on the entry of the corner can actually be an asset, because then the car turns and is pointed the way you want it to go earlier without as much steering input. And then if it's understeering on the exit of the turns, you can manage that with just a little throttle control. The other way around, that's kind of the worst of both worlds kind of thing, right? You got understeer in, so you can't get the car to actually change direction, so it takes forever to actually get the car into the apex, and then as soon as you get to the apex, then you're just chasing the rear end around the whole, or what some people call seesawing on the wheel, right? You're chasing that rear end grip and trying to get the power down, so not only is the chassis moving around, but also that's stopping you being able to get power down and speed out of the corner as well. So as I said, if they can get consistency in, at least you can deal with that as a driving. As if you remember back in when Alonso was driving that Renault, and he would just put tons of steering input right at the beginning. That was basically manipulating what the car was going to do and manipulating as a driver to get it to do what you wanted and get the best speed out of the car, right? But that was still amazing to me that
he was doing that real hard turn in late,
right.
break, and then boom. But he was doing that to get that chassis to rotate.
Well, no, he was doing it to stop, because the car would rotate super quick.
Oh, okay, got it.
Right, so you give it a lot of steering input. I mean, the car had unending grip, yeah, but that doesn't really happen. But he actually induces a little understeer to counteract the oversteer that was just about to happen.
Got it.
Right, so he neutralizes the dynamic of the car that way.
Right.
But if your car's understeering into a corner, there ain't nothing you can do except just keep trailing the brake in further and further and further. And that's easy to do on a chassis side, but when you're dealing with aerodynamics as well, that doesn't work so well.
Right. Yeah, I just felt bad for him because he was waiting when I know the team tried multiple setups and just couldn't really get on top of that. Very difficult situation to chase that around the track with no consistency. It's just got to be maddening for him or any other driver,
Any other driver, and the lap time is never going to be there, and ultimately you're being judged on the lap time, and whether it's because the car's not right or whatever, doesn't really matter in the end. Everyone's just seeing where you are in the standings, and that gets very frustrating, obviously. And you could hear that in his voice as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. This track, Paul, this track often called, Monaco without the walls, but I do like this track. I think that whole sweeping corner back section, 3, 4, 5, that whole thing is really fun to watch. You can really see the cars, 4 in particular, you can really see those cars in full chat,
Right,
and
right.
see them change direction like that. And it's so cool. And it's like when you and I go to Coda, and we love watching them through the tail end of the S's, and you can see those cars on full chat, coming out of there, and just how dynamic and how well they work. But what makes this track unique and difficult in that sense?
Well, it's a track you can get your teeth into. I'll tell you that, right? As you said, there's some corners you can really just see, as we saw. The uphill left, you could just see the Mercedes just grinding into the asphalt right there. And for any driver, we all enjoy really fast corners because it's really, makes us feel like heroes, right? And that's just one of those corners. You get it right, you can just grind in some massive speed. It's also a track with a good rhythm. I always slant on Singapore because of the lack of rhythm in that whole complete track. It's just annoying. But this track does have a really nice flow to it. Has good challenges, both high speed corners and slow speed corners, and as you said, change of direction. So the only thing it doesn't have is a great passing opportunities. But other than that, I think it really takes a lot of aspects of what to make good driver to get the most out of that track, be it patience. The last little section, the left and the right, takes a lot of patience and takes a lot of nuancing to get the car down to the apex at that point and not overcook the car into the corner. We talked about really digging your teeth into the really fast corners and those change of directions, getting the bounce right, getting the car to be neutral through there, really exceptional. So it really is a great track. If they just change that last corner to be a lot tighter, you could make it an actual track where there could be more passing. But then, we don't necessarily need to do that, do we? Because it really has remained fairly unchanged since it came out in the mid 80s, I think, 85 or something like that. Yeah. So it's nice to see these tracks go unchanged. And even though maybe there's some things we could do to the track to make it more racy without having to use DRS, it's still, it's got a lot of history, which I enjoy watching.
Yeah, great track. I love it. All right, well, let's talk about the race and how that finished. Certainly qualifying was a Mercedes affair with both Mercedes led by Lewis Hamilton on the front row. And so that bode well for that team. Ferrari brought a host of upgrades. They seemed to help the car a little bit, but everybody was outside of a Mercedes was damn near a full second off of pole position, and that didn't go well for the weekend. So you could see this already playing out come Saturday. As it was, the race won by Lewis Hamilton in P1, Valtteri Bottas in P3. After a terrific qualifying session, Lewis proceeded to take out the Mercedes cudgel and then beat the living crap out of the grid half to death with a punishing performance. The power in that car, everything about that car is just astounding this year. He lapped all the way up to 5th place on the grid and over a second a lap quicker than his rivals. And to be honest with you, it just brought me back to 2014. I haven't seen that kind of domination since 2014 when the hybrid power unit first came out and Mercedes just walked the season. Lewis secured his 8th win in Hungary and equaled Schumacher's record in most wins at one track. Schumacher doing that at Magny-Cours. And he also took the championship lead away from Bottas. Lewis did say, quote, "What an incredible race. Honestly, that was one of my favorites that I've raced." Even though
they all are, right?
Yeah, they all are. This narrative gets really old. Even though I was on my own for a majority, it's a very different kind of challenge, and I was pushing hard out there. Lewis, save it, dude. It's like every win was otherworldly. It's my favorite. This is the best race I've ever done. I got to be honest with you. 18 of the 20 drivers on that grid could jump in that car and lead it to victory, such as the domination of that car. It was just a dominating performance, and certainly you got to be there. You can't make any mistakes, and thankfully he didn't. He looked terrific.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, he looked terrific. The car looked terrific. It's not all about power, as we saw in some of
Hmm.
those really fast turns. That car is, it helps if you've got a great engine that you can really maximize also the aerodynamics of the cars as well. But as we saw, even if the pink Mercedes is a bit of the Racing Point car is a bit of a copy, the Mercedes team still have more than enough in hand over pretty much everyone. This was pretty demoralizing, I would say, for the rest of the team. I mean, this is
Hmm.
a track that you would think the Red Bull would have a
Yeah.
great chance, with its
Hmm.
handling characteristics and the team historically having a better handling car than a power car, but that just wasn't there, was it? So,
Mm, it wasn't.
um, yeah, I mean, I don't want to bemoan Lewis, saying that stuff or winning a race. I mean, the drivers put themselves in their position by things they've done in their past. I mean, Nigel
Sure.
Mansell won a championship, by a country mile, and it probably was easy, but he paid his dues all the way up until that point,
Oh, for
right?
sure.
So,
Yeah.
you got to earn your spot on the team like that, and he's done that. So.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, Bottas was pushing as hard as he can, but I'm not sure Lewis was. So um, he, when Bottas got that bad start, it basically allowed Lewis to just kind of dictate. He could just drive whatever he wanted to do and
Yeah.
do whatever he wanted to do, but still doing that and lapping up to fifth. That's pretty. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. He didn't, and he put in fast lap too. Got the extra point fast lap.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, I mean, it's heads up. He knew what he wanted to do. Lots of pace in hand. Set the pace, established it, protected the car, protected the tires, drove a measured, balanced race. I mean, yeah, it's it's. But my point is, it's easy to do when you got a car that does what it does. And
Oh yeah, no,
if you watch those onboards, um, that's what I was impressed with is how little steering input he or Valtteri have to put
right.
into
Which
that
shows a
car.
very neutral car, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
You're not fighting the front end or the back end. You're just
Hmm.
keeping the cars very, very balanced. So
Yeah.
that's
Now,
ultimately what you want.
in order to get to a position where you have a car like that, yeah, he's worked his tail off to get there. So that's that to your point. Yeah, absolutely. But that car is just, and it isn't just the power unit. In fairness, I keep knocking on about the hybrid power unit and Mercedes having a clear advantage and having had so since 2014, and that technology and their performance is just baked into their success. But Paul, you could have that engine, but it's all about the chassis too. It's all about the aerodynamics. It's the complete package that Mercedes has put together, not just a great engine, because Williams has the same engine.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just the whole package, everything that Mercedes has done.
Yeah. I mean, that they've just done a phenomenal job over these years.
Yeah,
They say they gained the advantage at the beginning and they haven't let go of that grip.
right,
And
right.
even though things are evolving all the time, cars are getting better, cars are getting faster, they're doing different things, they've always been striving to keep that advantage in place, and they have.
Yeah, they've answered it. Valtteri started second, blew the start, lost several places in the process. Bottas undercut Stroll and then stopped late for fresh tires to try to make a run at Max Verstappen, but he ran out of laps and couldn't get around him. Max didn't box for new tires, so that left Valtteri to make up some tremendous amount of space between I think it was like 20 seconds between him and Max, and he made it all the way up to his tail. He was putting in fast lap after fast lap. He's driving his butt off, no doubt about it. But I'm thinking Bottas, I don't know. I could be wrong. My hunch is Bottas, if he's going to do that, my hunch is that he may not see the title lead again this season. He just lost it. He had no room for any errors in a truncated season, in my mind. You just have no room. And driving as well as Lewis is driving now, and being a clear number one at that team with a car as dominant as Lewis and Valtteri's car is, it's going to be really difficult for Valtteri to mount a challenge now.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make any mistakes when you're fighting Lewis Hamilton for sure. I mean, he's done a great job. He was a tenth off in qualifying. I mean,
Yep.
he's doing everything he can do, but you just can't do that at the start and give him the easy win.
Yeah.
There's especially as we know, we don't know how many races we're doing. So any moment where you're losing those points, losing those positions, and making it easy for him, it's going to make it harder and harder as the season goes on.
That's right. Yeah, you can't make any mistakes because Lewis isn't making them.
No, no, he doesn't make any mistakes.
Yeah.
There was a time you would expect him to make a couple, two, three kind of boneheaded mistakes. He
Right.
just doesn't do it.
Doesn't do it.
And yeah. So what do you say? It was fun to watch the rundown though, for sure. See Bodas and see the times coming down. We need 18.5s. Oh, you did a 17.9. I think that made actually a really good, intriguing end to the race as he was trying to chase down Max. But Max
Yeah.
would have been, even if there was another lap left, I'm pretty sure Max would have found a way of not allowing Bottas by him at that point.
Yeah, yeah, Max would have made that car wide, that's for sure. But yeah, great fun to watch him recover back up, trying to get that P2. But yeah, it's going to be very difficult. He's going to have to hope for a mechanical or something like maybe like Lewis when he came together with Albon. Maybe he's on the losing side of that instead of Albon spinning. Maybe Lewis gets punted by somebody. He's going to have to hope for something in
Yeah.
order for him to get back in front because Lewis
Yeah.
just isn't making mistakes.
Yeah, and as Grace likes to say, hope isn't a strategy.
Right. Exactly. Right. Okay, that's Mercedes. Let's talk about Red Bull, Max Verstappen. Alex Albon P5, Max Verstappen P2. Max nearly threw it all away on the formation, or no, it wasn't the formation. It was
It was the
installation lap.
installation lap.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, almost threw it all away. Lost the back end, hit the wall, damaged his suspension, and then Paul, the team did an amazing job of repairing that suspension in the 20 minutes they had. They did it on the grid, and Max was able to start the race after that, which is incredible. I think they got done repairing the whole suspension with like 20 seconds left to go before they had to get off the grid, and they pull it off. It was amazing. Now, keep your eye on what happened next, because what happened next, in my mind, is what champions do. And I remember Schumacher doing the very same thing. Max clearly felt horrible about what he'd done and what happened. Any driver would. Any one of
Oh
them.
yeah, devastating. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But the job that team did to get Max able and capable to start that race was an Herculean effort. And he knows that. So in turn, what he did is he drove his butt off to secure a second place in a car that honestly had little interest in being on the podium. And in those it's that kind of reciprocal performance, repaying the team for all of the work that they put in, that builds that trust between the driver and team. It's one thing if you've been tough, you get out and whatever and you go on, but you could see Max felt terrible about it. And when he got in that car, the performance that he put down, I mean, he was tenacious as hell, and he wasn't going to give up because he realized everything that team did to get him there.
Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, I can't imagine the probably blood just rushed from his body at that moment. They had the car sideways heading towards the barrier. An amazing job by the team, but it's not just about hustle, it's about preparation in those circumstances. It's not like, oh, someone get me a upright, someone get me a tie rod. The team probably goes through drills a lot, and has all these pieces. Every time there's an adjustment on the car made, they adjust all the replacement pieces too. So that if anything gets damaged, they've got the piece with the right amount of threads on it and the right length, etc. So it'll fit right in there, because there's no way you can do an alignment on the grid and get it even close to anything. So a lot of these things is about preparation, practice, and being ready for anything reasonable to be having to do. And that's exactly what we saw there from the Red Bull team. It was all about they had obviously had that theory or that idea that this could happen, that could happen, and they had a fix for it, or at least a speedy fix for it, to get the car on the grid, and it really paid dividends, didn't it?
That's amazing. Yeah. And as they were talking through that, it's like, you made these adjustments. That's the ride height. This is the suspension. These are the number of shims that's in it and all that stuff.
Right.
And they're already doing that to the spare parts,
Yeah. Yeah, every time
Gotta
there's a change,
replace
you
it.
do it to the spare parts. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, yeah. Just the efficiency of that team. Red Bull, amazing job by
Hmm.
Red Bull doing it. Even Total Wolf said, yeah. I mean, that just shows you they're a class team, and they got a lot of good people over there,
Right, right.
for sure. Alex struggled all weekend long with the handling of his car, as we mentioned at the top of the cast, and that was also evidenced, though, Paul, by Max's struggles with this car. It's not just Alex. I mean, Max
Right.
spinning, struggling with that car, puts it in the wall during the installation lap. So it's genuine. The trouble with this car is genuine, and the recovery drive from Albon should be applauded. I mean, Alex had some impressive moves, kept his head and his foot down to come home fifth. I think that honestly, both Alex and Max proved that some of the upgrades that the team brought aren't behaving the way that the team want them to. They're going to have 10 days now to sort that out. But some of the harsh criticisms of Alex, I think, is a little unfounded if you think that Max is struggling with that car too. And Max is a driver who's capable of running with Lewis or anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's good for Albon that Max did kind of back up his issues with the car. Obviously, we know Max can get a lot out of a car, and Albon's still learning the trade, etc. But it's nice to have your teammate back you up on what is actually wrong with the car, and you're not just. It's not about we need to teach Albon how to drive a Formula One car, or at least to drive a Red Bull properly. And that now they recognize that, maybe they can all move on and fix the car rather than try and fix Albon. But I thought he did a great job in the race, coming back from all the lows of every practice session, the qualifying, etc. I mean, I actually did think they got the car better for the race for him, and I think he did an impressive job getting it to where he ended up in the race.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Red Bull, shall we? No, we already talked about Red Bull. Let's talk about
Yes.
Racing Point. The
How
pink
quickly you
Mercedes.
forget, Todd.
I know. How could I forget? Oh my gosh, that's just not good.
Not good enough, damn it.
All
Not good
right,
enough.
so we're going to talk about Racing Point. Sergio Perez P4, Lance Stroll in
Or the other way
Lance
around.
Stroll P4, Sergio Perez P7.
Yes.
I get
He
this
got
right.
the Oompa
Yeah. So Racing Point had a terrific qualifying session, number one, leaving many to think, whoa, maybe they are the second fastest car in the grid, and Lance still believes that. Perez, like Bottas, though, he had a bad start, lost several positions, struggled hard to recover, only finishing seventh. And he had to slow pit stop to boot. That didn't help things. Makes you wonder, just a bad day at the office? Or is that whole rumor of Seb talking to them about taking a seat have him sort of like focused elsewhere, i.e. Haas? I don't know what exactly happened to Sergio, but not what I was expecting from him.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Sergio's going to push no matter what. I don't think I guess you could be distracted and subconsciously not be doing what you want to do by the whole events and build up to the weekend where Sergio's gone, Seb's in. That's going to play on your psyche for sure. I'm not sure once you're in the car driving that's really going to affect it. I was a little surprised if the Racing Point is the second best car on the grid, that he wasn't able to recover better for sure.
Yeah.
But traffic, I mean, is a massive part. And bad pit stop. I mean, the midfield, obviously they're at the top echelon of the midfield, but one little blick, and it's a struggle after that to try and fight your way up. Certainly at Hungary.
And we saw that on several strategies unfolding, and it must be said, I didn't say at the top of the cast, but this was a changing condition race, right? And to that point, Paul, as a team strategist and driver both, but all those preconceived strategies are out the window. You start on inters, some started dry, and then that constant threat of rain throughout the entire race.
Yeah.
With radar showing, you're really at that point at a tactical level, lap by lap, right? And so any of those seconds, like Carlos Sainz slow stop, any of that stuff on a track that's difficult to get around and pass on, could have that knock-on effect. So I don't want to be too hard on Sergio.
Yeah, it's tough. They're making the call. You're trying to trick yourself into a better position and everyone's waiting on the rain or not the rain, and people are going longer on tires than they ever should do. Sometimes you're a genius, sometimes you're not so
Yeah.
genius-like, and it just didn't work out for them. And it could have easily. I mean, I'm sure the teams were just intensely on that weather chart, and it came and it went, and it came and it went, and it never came at all.
Yeah, right. For Lance, he converted his qualifying into a fourth place finish, having ran in second for quite a while. Lost out to Bottas and Max, though, in the pit stops. Lance had a very tidy race, a mature drive to fourth, and he still believes that they could have taken the fight to Red Bull and Mercedes, but Renault. Also, be it known that Renault did lodge a fresh complaint this weekend over the results for the brake tucks. They'll continue to do that on every single race until a verdict is rendered. That's a formality, so nothing new on the front. The pace of the Racing Point was terrific and resulted in consolidating really their lead in fourth place in the Constructors' Championship. That's going to be tough for McLaren to chip away at this point. And I have to admit, watching those onboard cameras, Paul, just like the Mercedes, there's not a lot of steering input for those cars. And I was a little intrigued to see that the driver of the day voting at F1.com did include Lance, a fourth place position for him. That was a great run for him.
Yeah, it was a good run. I'm not buying into it's the second fastest car on the track right now. I mean, he was in clean air. He had the chance to, he didn't have too many issues with pit stops or strategies, etc. I think ultimately, obviously, the second Mercedes was quicker, and Max in the Red Bull was quicker right now. They were head and shoulders above, or at least he was in that car this weekend, the rest of them. But I still don't think he still finished, I don't know, 30 seconds behind Lewis, maybe more. I can't remember now. But yeah, they're still not there, but so maybe not as efficient, but obviously a lot of characteristics of the Mercedes are carrying through.
Yeah, no doubt. Not a great weekend for Ferrari. You had Charles Leclerc P11, Sebastian Vettel P6, though, besting his teammate. Ferrari brought a raft of new changes. They've seemed to improve the car, but not as much as the team had hoped for. That left team boss Mattia Binotto saying that they need a complete rethink over the next 10 days. Completely unacceptable performance from the team. Not happy. Sebastian had the better of Leclerc. Perhaps that early stop for new tires hampered Charles, though. They put softs on his car instead of the mediums. Leclerc losing places right and left. And this is one of those cases, Paul, where the team were waiting for that rain, and that rain never came. And so they had no choice. He'd lost too many positions. They boxed him. Eventually they boxed him, put him on hards. He said the balance was much worse on Sunday than it was Friday and Saturday. The car was difficult to drive. He sunk lower in the field, finished out of the points. A difficult day for Chuck.
Yeah, intriguing, that he struggled, how the car could get worse. Especially when you bring the upgrades, you can evolve and learn things and make things better. So, it seems pretty obvious their biggest struggle is their engine power. So bringing upgrades is just trying to put, Band-Aids on a problem that they may not be able to solve this year, quite honestly. And they're trying to force that strategy, right? And I mean, Charles got a second at Red Bull Ring. I mean, they did a great job maximizing. Here it kind of went completely the opposite way, and they really didn't give me hope in hell of getting a good result. Right. I thought Vettel had a great race.
Yeah, he did.
I thought he really put in a very, very solid drive, and with the car he's got to get the position he had, I think is actually an overachievement of where that car is right now. So I think it was a good day for Seb, really.
Yeah, he had a better race than Charles for sure. He actually put the mediums on. He was lapped by Lewis, which is embarrassing. He said, I don't know, maybe if they'd boxed me a lap earlier, he would have avoided that traffic in the pit lane that cost him so much time on track. Yeah. And that kind of ruined his race right there, Paul. But going back to your part, Ferrari's problems aren't Seb. He's the victim, I think, of the company going through a heck of a lot of changes. It's sad to see them struggle this much, and it's really sad to hear Charles calling for help over the radio. That's just sad. Yeah. You wonder if Carlos isn't having second thoughts at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Seb's a victim. He's made other people's his victim too.
He's a victim of circumstances, Paul.
Well, he's had his own mistakes there,
yeah,
But Yeah, you definitely can't look to Seb or to Charles for
No.
the lack of pace out of the car right now. It's definitely a struggle. Yeah, I mean, we saw a lot of teams play those strategies right, and it's not just necessarily about how long you go on the tire. It's
Right.
where you're going to release that car out onto the track. And we saw, I think the Red Bull team did a great job putting Max out in prime position, and some other guys did too. But yeah, Ferrari have to get everything right to get a better result than that, and putting them out in traffic is just not going to be one of them.
Yeah, that isn't. No. Renault F1, Esteban Ocon, P14, Daniel Ricciardo, P8. Daniel ran a long first and second stint, and he ran longer than the rest, any around him, and he was hoping that that late fresh rubber would pay dividends. And in some ways, I think it did, Paul. He was able to make quick work of Leclerc and Magnussen, got up to eighth in a quiet race, really, for him. So maybe I think running those two long stints did give him a little fresher rubber, that he was at least able to get around them and up into eighth.
Yeah, I don't think they had a great car this week. I think Dan's doing a great job in that
Yeah.
team throughout the races. I mean, I think he's maximizing for sure. And as we said before, even though he's not their driver for next year, he's still pushing 100% every time he's out there. So yeah, the car maybe didn't suit this track, which you would think with the aerodynamics needed for it. I don't think they're right on top of that, but still a good result. I mean, I think they did the best that they could with Dan anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Ocon had a quiet race as well, started farther back than Dan did, wasn't able to really to make any gains up through the field. At this point it looks, in some ways it looks like the most hopeful way that Renault have to gain a position in the championship is getting Racing Point disqualified.
Maybe. It's a strategy.
It is a strategy. I mean,
They have hope. Yeah.
They have hope. Yeah, exactly. McLaren, Carlos Sainz, P9, Lando Norris, and P13. Besides staying late and helping the mechanics tear the cars down, good on him. This is a great PR move.
Yeah,
Man.
you know what I was thinking? It was, when you have your little kids and then you give them their fake or plastic tools to work on their little Tykes car. I was just, maybe that's what they did for Lance. They gave him a little fake Allen wrench.
Plastic
Just fiddle
screwdriver.
around with that, Lance. Good job. You fixed it. But,
Yay.
but yeah, no, it was good to see. Yeah, good PR move for sure.
Yeah, it was. It was good. Anyway, old last lap Lando. He had a tough weekend. A bad start moved him towards the back of the grid, where he made up a few spots. But when he boxed at the same time as everyone else, Paul, it wasn't. There's no real differentiator, right? He boxed with everyone else, put on the tires, and he was out in the same traffic. Managed to stay about where he was. Shows. I think one thing he may want to practice those wet starts a little bit more. He said he hadn't had a lot of experience doing wet starts, and
Really? In a Formula One car, probably.
Yeah, in Formula One cars. So it caught him out a little bit, and that kind of ruined his day. His real excitement was really the battle with Leclerc for 14th, and that was kind of fun to watch. Both of them go at it hammer and tongs, and unfortunately, they were fighting for territory that really neither of them should have been fighting for.
Right. Not at this point now, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
Carlos,
nothing special
go ahead.
from
Yeah.
nothing special from the McLaren guy. Kind of going in tandem with the Renault guys, really. Maybe
Yeah,
this
right.
just isn't their kind of track.
Yeah, Carlos, good start, made up a few positions, had that slow stop that really cost him a lot, left him running out of the top 10. He opted to stay out longer, though. This helped him take Leclerc for P10, which turned into a P9 with maximum penalties, so that was kind of his race. Let's see. Speaking of Haas F1, Kevin Magnussen, P10 in the points. Roman Grosjean, P16. Haas radioed both drivers on the formation lap as they determined that the starting on the dry tires might be a gamble worth taking. And as it was, both drivers ended up running at the front of the grid because of that decision. Kevin was in better shape strategy-wise than Roman was, but Roman ended up running tail gunner really for Kevin, and then he had a late clash. I didn't see it. I read about it, but he said he had a late clash with Albon, which damaged his front wing a little bit. That dropped him back several places for Roman. I'm speaking of Grosjean.
Okay.
And so, yeah, he was running tail gunner, but this left Magnussen. He was able to run up front most of the race. He started losing those positions. He managed to bring it home in ninth, but the team was handed dual penalties for both drivers at 10 seconds. That dropped Kevin back into 10th. Still claimed a point. The rule was aiding a driver, and that came about with the radio ban where they were, telling the drivers the things and settings and all that. And you
Right.
remember they had that radio ban. Now, after they reversed that, they lifted that radio ban, but they did keep it on the formation lap. And if memory serves correctly, that was to basically get the teams from not helping the drivers
Right.
determine where their
Not
clutch
giving-
bite points was, right?
Right.
And so,
Radio
as
silence.
as it is, they also used that regulation to suggest that calling in for dry tires was aiding the driver. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't like it. I don't. I understand why that rule was in, and I'm all for bringing down, pit to driver information. As I say, I'm more inclined to give them less things to fiddle with that information would be any use for. But yeah, I do remember that whole situation, and I don't really think this falls into that space. But how can a team not be talking strategy? This isn't like tell them settings on the bite point or anything like that. This is
Right.
basic strategy that the teams talk about before the race, talk about at the start of the race, and talk continually through the race. And I don't know why this one lap should be kept out of that whole scenario. I mean, it doesn't make any
know.
sense to me. I mean, I would hope, I guess there were protests, were they? Or did the ruling body just kind of include that into that deal? Did someone protest what they did?
I don't know, because they weren't the only team discussing it on the formation lap.
Right.
Remember, Daniel Kvyat was saying,
Right, he
do I
called-
come in?
Right. We heard him talk,
Yeah.
and maybe they couldn't respond because they're not allowed to, and maybe they were up on that. I don't know, but I wouldn't have thought that this whole scenario would have fallen into that. But radio silence, I guess, on the formation lab is radio silence, I suppose, unless it was something like emergency, right? Something dangerous to the car or something. But
Right.
I think it's a misstep by the rules to not allow the teams to call those kind of things. So I think it's fantastic to make that bold move. I think they'd made a really boneheaded move to put someone out on full wets. But I thought it's great for a team to roll the dice and make that call. It's just really unfortunate they got a penalty for it.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand the bite points and engine mappings and all that kind of settings and those kind of things. I think I can understand that, but on a rudimentary, it's a damp track. You go out on enters or full wets. Okay, how does it feel? Okay, then dive back in the pits. We'll put drives. You start from the pit lane. You know, that seems like a race strategy, not an engine setting.
Right. It's a call that people have made decades.
They've made that
decades.
before.
Yeah.
They've made that before. I don't know. Derek Warwick was the guest there, and somebody fact checked me on this, but I told Paul, I texted him, it just seems like when Derek is the guest steward, things get a little litigious. I don't know.
Yeah, he likes to flex his muscles.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like one of those things, and we've talked about this before when they have these guest stewards and they go in, well, by golly, I'm going to do a bang-up job, and I'm going to go in and make an impact, like, when they get new senators or Congress people, and they go and we're going to do this, and it's like, okay, well, no, how about just going and really watching the rules that we have,
Yeah, well, he was in charge of Silverstone, right, in the British Racing Drivers Club and all that stuff. So maybe he misses it and he wants to get someone in trouble.
Yeah, maybe he likes going in and really putting his foot on the neck of Formula One. I don't know.
Yeah,
Somebody fact check me. Every time Derek is a guest steward, is there controversy or drama or penalties? A lot of penalties. I don't know. It seems like it. His name always seems to crop up on these moments, so I could be totally wrong. Apologies, Derek, if I am. Alpha Tauri, Paul. Tauri. That's how you say that. Daniel Kvyat, P12, Pierre Gasly at DNF. Pierre, what a miserable weekend after struggling with lots of engine issues that prompted an actual engine change. The team put a new engine in, but then they retired the car with gearbox issues. So it was just a terrible weekend for him.
Yeah.
For Danny, he was asking to come in on the formation lap too, but the team kept him out. When they did box him at the end of lap one, tragically they fitted him with softs like Charles Leclerc, which proved to be not the right choice of tire. That didn't pay off. Danny felt like they should have been in the points. But when he came out after his pit stop, he was stuck in traffic, and the tire had more degradation than the team were expecting. That didn't help. So like many teams, the anticipated rain kept the stint long. They kept holding him out there thinking that rain was going to come, and it just didn't come, and they were unable to reclaim the ground they had lost.
Yeah, those softs were a little tricky, weren't they? They had a very short span where they're actually advantageous, and you come out in traffic and you can't make use of that, then they were pretty much useless at that point for him, unfortunately. And I said, you just left out there high and dry. It's tough to make it back. So and Gasly, one engine problem to the next. Man. Disappointing.
Yeah, because I think he would have done well, and I think Danny would have done well if he'd have dove into the pits. Put dries on and started. I think he'd have been right there with us,
I think it would have been great. As I said, I love those calls. That mixes it up. I don't think they should do away with that at all.
Yeah. Alfa Romeo, Kimi Räikkönen, P15, and Antonio Giovinazzi, P17. Kimi lined up in the wrong slot, or actually, he slid over his pit box. And so they gave him a penalty for that.
Oh, man.
And he was at the back. So anyway, that started his difficult race. Kimi and Antonio spent the day basically battling with Williams and each other. Fred said that the pace on paper would have been better, but the poor quality, they were really out of position in his mind. He thought on paper their pace actually should have been more competitive than that, but they were out of position.
Yeah, not much. The Alpha Tauri, it's like, I don't know. There's them and I don't know what to say about Alpha this year. There's just nothing to say about them other than they were in the race.
They were. And I appreciate
they showed up.
I appreciate Fred saying, on paper, actually, we were faster than it's like, Hercules. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
They combed their hair. It was good.
Looks good. Looks good on you, though. All right, Williams F1, George Russell P18, Nicholas Latifi P19. Latifi looked, well, Paul, he looked like the rookie he is. Had a couple of spins in those changing conditions. He was unsafely released. That wasn't his fault. Into the path of one Carlos Sainz, which caused a puncture on his car. And by the time he made it all the way back to the pits, he was pretty much a non-factor at that point. Also, unfortunately, George, he fitted those soft tires too, Paul. That left him out fighting the Alfa Romeos basically all afternoon. George also had a bad start and said their pace was just way off compared to even last year. Their pace at the Hungary.
That's a stinker. But Russell's been doing a great job in qualifying, but obviously the car just can't manage the tire or do something. It just doesn't have the race pace yet, and that's pretty obvious right here.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's see. Did I miss anything on any of the teams, Paul?
Was it Caterham? Did we get to Caterham yet?
No, but HRT's up next.
What? Oh.
Yeah. Super Guri. They finished, All right, shall we give out some awards? Let's do that.
Let's do that, yes. Shine them
we
up.
like to do that. All right, here we go. Well, the first one's Pass of the Race. Woo! All right, Paul. Pass of the race. Let me hear it.
I'm going to give it to turn 2.
What?
Yes, turn 2 on the track. I think.
Wow. I think that's a great gift. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know how to give an award to a piece of asphalt, but I will at least mention it because I thought, I know it's DRS and all this kind of stuff, and maybe the Hungarian is the least angry I get with DRS, but and most of the time, unless you're driving a Mercedes, it does just allow them to get alongside. It doesn't allow them to go out past and then, check out before the next turn. But just the contours of that corner with the camber, you can stick on the outside and you can get to the inside. Even if you go to the inside, the camber hurts you, so it's a do or die past there. So I really like that turn for everyone having a go, and a lot of people did and were successful. We saw a lot of side-by-side action there. So I think for the Hungarian, that's a pretty exciting and fun turn and makes the race entertaining.
There you go, a gift for turn 2. You're like, Paul, I give you these two droids. Both are hardworking and will serve you well. All right. Well, the next. Did I tell you mine?
No, you
I
didn't. No.
All right. Mine. My pass of the race was. Did you see Carlos Sainz try to pass Charles Leclerc? And he tried to pass him, maybe it was on the inside. I can't remember if it was inside, outside, but Charles blocked him off.
Yeah.
So he waited to the next lap and reversed the situation.
Yeah,
Did you see that? So Carlos completely reversed the situation, set him up, and had him. I thought it was a great move.
It's good stuff.
I enjoyed that one. All right, next up, donkey of the race.
Get down.
All right, Paul, donkey of the race. What'd you get?
I'm giving it to the radio rule.
Yeah.
You know, I like people making bold moves, and I hate them to be penalized for them.
I do too. That was not good. That did not make us happy at all.
Makes Paul sad.
I know. You were sitting at home like I was. We were texting each other going,
What the hell?
I mean, what? Yeah. And the more we were texting, the more I was thinking, oh, wait. It's like, because, I'm old, so it took me a little while, but eventually it kind of came back to me. It was like, I was over the bite point of the clutch bite point. That's
Provenance of the rule.
The reason I didn't remember it is because they didn't apply it for what it was really preventing, which is setting the clutch bite points and stuff and engine mapping. So it came out of left field. That's why it didn't resonate immediately with me, that it was like, oh, that's that rule. Yeah. All right. Well, then that leaves us one award. Driver of the race! Woo! All right.
That's an exciting one.
It is exciting. All right. Driver of the race. Who'd you get?
Give it to Mags.
Who?
Oh, Magnussen.
K-Mags. Awesome.
Yes. Got it.
That's
I don't have
awesome.
to, but I'm going to.
You're
anyway.
going to?
Yeah, I think it was great. I mean,
awesome.
Made the most of the strategy, held it in third place for a lot longer than I thought he was going to do. I like Max as a driver. I think he really does do a good job. No one's wondering if Max should be around at Haas. That's for sure, because he really does, fight hard.
He does. He
definitely did that day. Yeah.
Yeah, he does. I would agree with you. I think a lot of people think Magnussen's a dirty driver and those kind of things, and he's had altercations that might lend itself to that. But I don't know. He's a fighter, man. I mean, he's
he'll grab you by the evidently.
Yeah, right. I had Max Verstappen.
Okay.
I'm going to give it to Max. I think,
even though he made that big error.
He did. He
made that wrong.
Yeah, he made that mistake. He felt terrible about it, but then he turned right around and delivered an incredible performance, hustling that car all the way up into second place, fighting his tail off, trying to make sure that Bottas didn't get around him, and just his mechanics, the whole team. That was a redemptive drive, to be sure, and I thought it was a great drive. So
it was
good on him. All right. Hey, before we leave, let's do some mailbag.
You've got mail.
We haven't done some of that in a while.
Okay.
This question is specifically for you, Paul.
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles.
Just for you.
Thank you.
It says, Dear Mr. International, during the Hungarian Grand Prix F1 graphics featured Bottas with box scores on different speed corners. For example, it might state 8.3/first for medium speed corners. Also stated was the caption out of 10. As the increment is 0.1, this means the scoring is based from 0.0 to 10.0, or a resolution of 1%. Restating the above...
Oh, they let me get a pen and paper.
Yeah, let me get a calculator. I was told there was going to be no math. Restating the above was an 83%. The criteria to get a 100% rating was not defined. In another column, the scoring was 8.1/3rd. This implies that each position difference is 1%. As cornering speed is a function of track conditions, car setup, and driver, this rating seems at best fallacious. If I were to set up a system with so many variables, I would just average the fastest time in each corner by driver and post the results by ranking first, second, third, through 17th Williams.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah. My question, how would you rank cornering capabilities?
Ooh, that's good.
It is
Obviously, segment time is an old dog that we all use,
by
right?
the way, this is from Pat Goodman. I didn't know if I said who wrote this in. So
You did
yeah,
not. Thank you,
good
Pat.
question, Pat.
Yep, yep. So segment time's an old dog where you used to go out the corners and you'd time someone when they came into the corner, went out. Total segment time. You can rate drivers by that. Easy, right? Other things I would want to look at is minimum speed.
Mm-hmm.
See how much rolling speed that car is carrying through can really tell you how that car is reacting and what's its benefit. You know, is it making it through rolling speed? Is it making it from power out? As I told you a long time ago, one of the biggest things I ever saw when I saw Schumacher drive was his entry speed into the apex.
Mm-hmm.
So not just rolling speed, total segment time, but I think it'd be a really interesting data point to see from the beginning of the corner to the apex and the apex on out, and see who's really carrying that speed all the way into the apex. I think that's really a key sign on who's really got really driving well throughout a corner.
That was one of Schumacher's real keys on how he would take the apex a little different, the entry a little different, so he could carry a lot more speed into that.
A lot of speed, yeah.
And at the apex, he was slower than other drivers, but he was faster out because of his entry speed.
Yeah, I mean, he would make. There's this old adage, slow in, fast out, but Schumacher made it work the other way, and some other drivers I've seen too. It really is. It takes a lot of confidence to take a car into a corner that fast and think you can make it out with enough speed to actually make that a benefit, right? It's easy to go in slow, get the car turned, power out, right? It's easy to control the car on the power coming out of a corner. It's a lot harder, and you're a lot more on the edge of the car when you're taking a lot of entry speed in. It can go horribly wrong very quickly.
Yeah. It's a good question, though.
It is a great question.
I like that. Thanks for that, Pat. Next question is Matt. He asks, "Hey, great to have race reviews back. Easy one. How long until Fernando gets Cyril fired?"
I can envision Alonso walking in the front door and still actually leaving the back door, running away like a Mr. Bean style or something.
Right.
It could be that quick, if
I
not
know.
earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it might be as quick as Flavio can say.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I'm with you, Matt. I said this a few weeks ago when the Alonso news broke. I said, I could see that putting some pressure on Cyril, because there's already pressure that this team isn't delivering where I'm sure the board thinks it should be. And when you get a guy like Alonso coming in who won 2 titles with that team before you were there, and then he comes in again and you can't get it done, I think it's going to be difficult for Cyril to survive if he doesn't deliver for Alonso.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how much Alonso's involved in the team this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the COVID rules, etc., they're minimizing personnel, so it's not like Alonso can just show up and hang out.
Right.
But I'm sure he would want to. But I think for Alonso, I fully expect him to try and get in there as soon as he can to evaluate how this team works, so he can try and manipulate the system, not just for himself, but to kind of help strive this team into a more competitive thing when he gets in the car.
I'm thinking, Paul, that could manifest itself in actually a lot of time at the HQ and doing sim work, because this is the car they're going to be stuck with next year.
Right.
So I'm thinking maybe if they can't inject him into their COVID bubble to be in the paddock, then maybe he does go to the HQ and do a tremendous amount of sim work, and that kind of development might be interesting. I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, he's made a big commitment to come back to Formula One with Renault, so I don't think he's going to take it in a blasé attitude at all. So yeah, you're right. Maybe that is the only way he can learn how the team works from that side of things, as well as at the race weekends. You can tell a lot from how they work on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, at the track, it's kind of like the end point of what they've done, all their hard work before you got there.
Right, and he could be there, and when all that data from a race weekend comes back to HQ, it's how they process that, what they develop, what they try on the sim, and he can try it out. Yeah, I could see that being a good role for him. So,
Yeah, for sure.
last question. Matt Allen asks, "Hi Todd, was wondering where I can find audio of the old interviews I did with Steve Matchin on the Downshift back in the Formula One blog days." Matt, that is a great question. I will try to find those for you, and if I can find those, might be able to get those posted somewhere that you could take a listen. Might post those on our Patreon page, and maybe I could post a link to that. So let me look for those, because those are, some of that's just evergreen content, because Steve is well, he's Steve.
Oh, Steve, yeah.
Yeah, he's just Steve, and his concepts are timeless. So let me see if I can find those, and I'll post those. So good question. So there you go. That's our mailbag, Paul. That's what we're
Off the
thinking.
mailbag.
That's it, man. All right, 10 days off. Going to
Yay.
Silverstone. You're beating me like a narc at a biker rally in the.
Yeah, you had a
fantasy
big comeback
GP.
this week.
I
I'm still
did.
at top 25. You had a big weekend. Yeah.
I did. I had a big weekend. I made up 15 places. I wasn't the biggest jump. There was one other individual that had 18, made up 18 places, which was fantastic.
Yeah, I love the names on the game.
I do.
Yeah, we should have a vote on top 10
I
name
know.
picks.
I
You know.
I like Tazio's daughter. I love
Yeah,
that one.
I like the Thought Brokers. I think that's a great one.
Yeah, the thought brokers are good.
Yeah.
ones. Yeah. And so, hey, but here's the good news. Both you and I are beating Skip.
Ha! We said we would. We gave
Yeah.
him the first year. You said, hey, let him win.
Let him
whatever.
win. I
Give him a
know.
rosette. But now,
Yeah, I
boom,
know.
we're down on it.
We were
Yeah.
like, he's a rookie. Let's go easy on him, Paul.
Yeah,
But this year,
yeah.
it's yeah.
We shouldn't have said that. He's going to beat us by next week.
He is. He's gonna beat the crap out of me. I
Mm-hmm.
know it. So anyway, all right. Well, if you're not playing the TPF Fantasy GP game, do so. You can go to fantasygp.com, look up TPF, but you can go to our website and type in fantasy. TPF Fantasy GP. I think I posted a post there, and you can get the code to join the league, and you can fight along with us, and you can gang up on Skip. But Skip's doing a great job over at his website. He's got that's where he tracks all the
Yep,
the
I was on there
scores.
today checking it out.
Yep. So if you guys go to kingsbridgebcp.com and check that out, and you can see our league, and he's tracking all that for us, so it's great. Great stuff. So anyway, all right, be sure to stop by the website, theparcfermé.com. Share your opinion with decorum and civility. As always, no personal attacks. If you like the podcast, go over to iTunes, give us a good rating, give some love over there. And if you like the podcast, you know what? Share with a friend. Tell a friend about it. Let people know, It's one of those things where I'm
Do it
terrible.
safely.
Yeah, do it safely. 6 foot social distancing. But it's one of those days I'm terrible at shameless self promotion. But and we have all these listeners. But be sure to tell your friends about it too. Spread the love. Get on social media. Promote us a little
Get
bit.
your kids
That would be
listening,
good.
We don't
Yeah,
swear
exactly.
here.
Get the kids. It's
Family friendly.
Right. I'm not in here F-bombing everything, and neither is Paul. Now, when pre-roll before we start recording,
Oh, yeah.
Paul's a sailor.
Oh,
Man. Actually, between the three of us, Grace is the sailor.
that's for sure.
That's what's awesome.
Yeah, I have to do this when Grace is on
I know. We're like,
sometimes.
Grace, come on, man.
I don't even know what that word means.
It's awesome. So anyway, share with a friend. Tell somebody about it. Huge thank you to the people that signed up on Patreon this week. Man, I tell you, I know it's tough times, and it's tough times for everybody, including us. So signing up to support us at Patreon is huge. So if you'd love the podcast and you'd like to support us, you can do that for as little as $1 a month. And you can
like-
go to our Patreon page.
Very cheap cup of coffee.
Exactly. Very cheap cup of coffee. So anyway, all right, Paul, I appreciate it as always. Come on. What are you going to make for dinner tonight? Tacos?
I am actually, yes.
Tacos.
Tacos for dinner tonight.
So Paul's British, but my daughters love the way Paul says tacos. He says tacos. They
Yes.
love it.
My family don't. They are embarrassed by it, but even more reason to keep it.
It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that does it for this week. We'll be back next week to talk about Formula One news. Until that time, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camper, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man.